Who am I? Young, mother, mentor, aunt, sister, orphan, Anishinabekwe, Omigakwe, indigenous feminist, teacher, doula, rhetorician, musician, student, researcher, advocate, assertive, agnostic with indefinable spirituality, and many other things. I'm an outsider at a mainstream American university. My history is not your history. My experience is not your experience. My texts are not your texts. My goals are not your goals. Yet, I live in a world that expects me to conform. I swim in a pallid sea of hegemony and ethnocentrism. I have often felt unsafe and uncomfortable in this position. I have questioned my role as a student. I've often wondered, what am I doing here? Is anyone in this room actually listening? I've wondered, have I betrayed the people who live in the margins along with me and my family? What is the role of literacy in my life? I constantly challenge the hierarchies we privilege. I will think critically even when someone demands that I don't. I will actively participate in the institutions which I love to hate, so that someday I may see a subversion of what mainstream Americans hold so dearly: hegemony, imbalance, inequity, and violence. As Serge Tankian sings, I need to fuck the system. To me, literacy is anarchism. What is literacy? I cherish no definition. I choose not to argue about what makes a person, quote-unquote, literate. Our painful history as women and indigenes is marked with literacy hierarchies. Our creativity has been stifled, destroyed, ignored. I don't engage in that conversation. Instead, I participate in things that make me happy and angry, healthy and unhinged, satisfied and seething. If I put forth an effort in something, if it evokes emotion in me, I count it as a literacy. I read, write, sew, sing, and play the flute. I garden. I create poetry. I do laundry, raise a daughter, braid hair, dance in powwows, and make dessert for my neighbors. I am multilingual. I speak the languages of motherhood, birth, sex, and music. I love no literacy above the other. From grocery store to daycare to university, these pieces of the whole shape who I am and what texts I create and what stories I tell. Who and what has informed my literacies? My mother, the absent father, the lovers, the children born and unborn, the women whose babies will be delivered into my arms, the whitewashed books I read in school, the bodies on television, the good and bad birth experiences, the health disparities, the diseases, the love afforded to me by gracious women, my fellow orphans, my sisters, the fabric, my dreams, the big lake and endless sky. I am surrounded by inspiration, which often fuels me with hopelessness, then moves me to work even harder. Why do I create? I would like to quote the prolific indigenous author and genius Leslie Marmon Silko. She writes, "Many people think of storytelling as something that is done at bedtime, that it is something done for small children. But when I use the term storytelling, I'm talking about something much bigger than that. I'm talking about something that comes out of an experience and an understanding of that original view of creation, that we are all part of a whole. We do not differentiate or fragment stories and experiences." Silko eloquently describes a reasoning why I also tell stories, to prove that who I am cannot, will not, and indeed should not be separated from the text I create. I create to honor the history of my people, to honor the mothers and grandmothers who stood on Mother Earth before I did. I honor the lives of the women whose bravery, love, and strength made it possible for our people to survive in the face of erasure and assimilation. Elie Wiesel says that he writes for a similar purpose. I owe them my roots and my memory. I am duty-bound to serve as their emissary, transmitting the history of their disappearance, even if it disturbs, even if it brings pain. Not to do so would be to betray them, and thus myself. And since I am incapable of communicating their cry by shouting, I simply look at them, I see them, and I write. Wiesel speaks of a Holocaust perpetrated on his people, a genocide, the memory of which he refuses to allow to be absorbed or forgotten. I also refuse to allow my people's history to be forgotten. I am a modern voice of my people. It is my obligation to speak up and speak out. I am like Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who says defiantly that he is not afraid of the word tension. The discomfort felt by the readers of my text is not accidental. In particular, my presence in the classroom is an obvious source of discomfort for many instructors and students alike. I attempt to ask the big questions that make you squirm, make you angry, the questions which will force you out of the safe hole your society has comfortably hid you in since childhood. Sometimes you will crawl right back in, but at least you will take a piece of my heart with you. Terry Tempest Williams reminds me that the price of obedience has become too high. Tolerating blind obedience in the name of patriotism or religion ultimately takes our lives. I delight in disobeying the rules with my literacies. I relish in challenging authority. I relish in confronting the arbitrary rules of my major. I will live outside the proverbial box. I will go above and beyond the limited expectations of what you expect from a low-class orphan and teenage mother. Will I make mistakes? Certainly. Will everyone be impressed with me? Certainly not. Will I still prove to the world that my voice matters while fitfully undermining the majority's denial and comfort? Absolutely. I'm complicated. I'm an individual voice in the sea of everyone. Everyone says they want to make the world a better place. We want to be the quotes in someone's essay years from now. We want the link back. I want to be remembered for creating the rocky waves that eventually created peaceful shores.